Researchers in Melbourne have found leading facial age scanning tools vital for the teen social media ban can still be tricked by cheap masks and other party costumes. Face scanning tools are one of several linchpin technologies that social media companies will depend on to kick under 16s off their platforms when the ban begins in December. Our national technology reporter Ange Lavoipierre joins me now to explain. Hi there, Ange. So what are some of the tactics that researchers have been trying and how well do they really work?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I actually have one of the masks here that the researchers have been using to test out these systems. It's pretty intense, as you can see here, but it is quite accessible as well. So I bought this on, and the researchers also bought it on a party costume website. It's like $22. So they were really looking for workarounds that young people might be using that were on the less sophisticated end of the spectrum. They also looked at Guy Fawkes masks, the funny like nose and glasses and moustache scenario, basically like stuff you could get from the $2 shop. And it's just a preliminary result that we've got here from this research that's been shared with the ABC by the University of Melbourne and some researchers from Princeton. They're still completing the full study, but the preliminary results do suggest that these kinds of workarounds, as well as, pulling silly faces and, pointing the camera at a video game character, for example, they do work. Not reliably and not always on the first try, but they do constitute a bypass in their view. So, yes, as I say, still some more work to do on that study in the lead up to the ban, but some weaknesses emerging.
Yes, some pretty easily accessible tricks, as you say there. So what do age assurance providers have to say about this? Were they surprised at some of these results?
Yeah, look, in some ways, but on the other hand, they've said all along that these systems aren't perfect. They're pretty keen to put this in perspective, as you can imagine. Also, look, the more times you get trying to beat a system, and researchers had a kind of infinite number of tries to beat the system. That's what they do. That's what testing is. But in the real world, you may not have an infinite number of tries. In fact, ideally, you won't. And so that's something to keep in mind here. They said that the majority of these kinds of bypasses do get spotted. The age assurance providers do research them. They've got a research lab that are full of masks like the one I showed you just now, and they're actually spotting 97 to 98% of bypasses. So yes, look, some will get through, but it's a pretty it's a problem that they're on top of. The other thing is, facial age checking is not the only technology that will be used to make this ban work. It's not the only kind of technology. We've also got age inference, so that's using data that a platform might already have about you, to work out your age. Of course, there's providing ID, which is age verification. So it's part of that layered approach that the government keeps talking about. It's not the only sort of tech that we're relying on, but it will play an important role.
So how's this vulnerability going to play out on December 10th, do you think?
Well, that's an interesting one. I think, we potentially saw something of a preview back in July when the UK brought in its own age checking system for under 18s, trying to keep them away from some adult content online. And it was a bit of a mess for the first, couple of weeks, I suppose. You did have social media really awash with reports, people saying how they'd tricked the ban, sharing tips, that kind of thing. And you can imagine that, once the systems are put in place in Australia, you might see that pattern play out as well. The age verification industry does respond, though. They said that all those workarounds that emerged in the UK, they noted them, they responded to them, they shared the solutions, between different companies. So it'll be a bit of a cat and mouse game, but it certainly won't be perfect on day one.